Hello and welcome to Introduction to Anti-Racism Terminology. This video is brought to you by the Rainbow Diversity Institute, a company that does education on equity, diversity, and inclusion topics like this and many others. You can learn more about us at rainbowdiversityinstitute.ca. Today's video is going to provide an introduction to the concept of allyship, and in particular, racial allyship, or white folks being allies to BIPOC individuals. So, allyship is defined as an active, consistent practice of unlearning and reevaluating. It's a process of unlearning privileges and reorienting power to act in solidarity and support of an equity-seeking or equity-deserving, we should say, group. This definition is taken from the Anti-Oppression Network, who's cited below. And so I just want to add that, allyship is really about there's two things that happen. There's the unlearning piece that happens where an individual actually embarks on an educational and learning journey that continues for the rest of their life, whereby they continue to unlearn the ways that they've been thinking about race and society and examine their privilege and their positionality. And then there's the second action component where individuals who have certain levels of social power actually use that power to act in solidarity or to support the efforts of an equity-deserving group. So Dr. Beverly Daniel Tatum, who wrote this book on the right, Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria, suggests that anti-racism action requires us to move against the tide. So she uses the example of moving along one of these conveyor belts, for example, at an airport, and that most of us are not actively racist, right? So if we were actively racist and we imagine the conveyor belt is racism, we might just actually walk along the conveyor belt as quickly as we can. Most of us like to think that we are not actively racist. We're not actually promoting racism or participating in it in an intentional or obvious way, but we are participating in reinforcing racism in a lot more subtle ways, and perhaps also just through our inaction. So she suggests that for those of us who see ourselves as non-racist, we might be standing on the conveyor belt, but we're still moving in the direction of racism, right? If we're standing and we're not doing anything, we're still moving in that general direction because that is how that system is constructed to move us along. In order to be anti-racist, or in this case, in order to be an ally, one would have to actually turn around on the conveyor belt and walk in the opposite direction, meaning that you're moving against the tide. And it's a lot harder. It's a lot more challenging, right? Because it's not just about taking action, but it's about taking action that's very challenging to take, that's going against kind of every system and structure that's in place to shape your behavior and to shape your experience. So I like this analogy, and we at Rainbow Diversity Institute like this analogy because it helps to understand the difference between inaction or being kind of passively non-racist and actually being an ally. So who is an ally? An ally is a person who's working to end a form of oppression that gives them privileges. If you need more information about what privilege is, you can check out some of the other videos at rainbowdiversityinstitute.ca because there's one there on privilege. Allies listen to and are guided by the communities and individuals who are affected by oppression. They look for the communities that are advocating for the end of oppression of that particular group. They listen to and follow the guidance of those communities and really step in where needed. So one example of a really good book that you could take a look at is Me and White Supremacy by Layla Saad. And this book is actually a 30-day guide to walk you through examining white supremacy and white privilege, which is a really great first step towards allyship, because as we talked about, part of allyship is that unlearning process. So a few examples of actions that you could take as an anti-racist ally or an effort to be in allyship with racialized communities would be expressing disagreement when someone says something racist and helping them to understand why what they've said is problematic. Evaluating how you contribute to systems of oppression. So again, going back to that idea of unlearning. And then the action-oriented pieces, donating money, campaigning, and using your privilege to advocate for change. These are really important, tangible things that you can do to help support racialized groups and BIPOC communities looking for justice. So thank you so much for taking the time to learn a little bit about allyship today. You can find more videos and education like this at rainbowdiversityinstitute.ca.